Now I'm looking at addiction as a dis-ease. And I like to separate that word disease into two words. Dis, meaning distance from, and ease, a sense of ease in your life. So if we're stuck in any form of addiction, we can relate to that distance from ease. How do we feel it? We feel it in the mind, neurotic, psychotic, being overpowered by our thinking, feeling that your mind is getting the better of you. We can also feel addiction, the sense of dis-ease in the body, literally not feeling comfortable in our own skin, feeling fatigued, feeling sick, feeling low energy. We can feel that sense of dis-ease on a spiritual level. This sense of longing for love, a sense of longing to belong, a sense of loneliness, disconnection. So addiction is felt in all of those ways. It's felt at the level of mind and body and spirit. We exist in this state of dis-ease, and most of our life is spent trying to get out of that feeling, to relieve ourselves of the feeling of dis-ease. When we get onto the path of recovery, we are engaging in a lifestyle that closes the distance between us, our being, and ease. So we become closer to ease, and we experience ease more often. So if you can follow what I just said, think about the effect of food in this equation of moving from dis-ease or distance from ease toward ease. Think about how important food would be in that equation. I'll simply ask you this question. Do you feel like there's something you could eat, or maybe there's something you do eat that could make you feel uncomfortable in your physical body? Anybody? What is it that you might eat that would make you feel uncomfortable in your physical body? So I'm seeing a lot of responses here. I'm seeing sugar, ice cream, meats. One person, kale, not going to help them. Maybe they don't deal well with kale. Donuts, dairy, gluten, cake, heavy meats, pizza, chocolate. Yeah, so eggs. The point is that each of us is probably by this point aware enough to know, if I eat this food or that food or that food, that's going to create dis-ease in my body, meaning it's going to move me a little further from ease. Now, I'll ask you this question. Do you believe that you know what to eat in order to bring about ease in your body? In order to bring about a sense of ease and comfort and strength and vitality and radiance? So I'm getting yes, mostly. Fruit, vegetables, organic juices, greens, dates. Okay, what else? This is a very personal question. There's no right or wrong answer here. It's just simply, are you aware of what will create a sense of ease in your body? Spinach, salads. Okay, no empty carbs. Okay. Protein, chicken, greens, tofu, calming herb teas, ginger, water. Okay, great. And some wise person in our group said, there's a big difference between knowing and doing. And we're going to come to that in a moment. So what's interesting here is we have a very clear idea about something that we can eat that is not going to bring about good effects in our body. And we have some ideas about what to eat that are going to bring about good effects in the body. Meaning, and when I say good effects, I mean creating strength, radiance, vitality, and moving you closer to ease. Why is this important? Because as people on a path of recovery from addiction, whatever the addiction might have been, what I've seen is our food choices directly affect how we're feeling in the body and later on how we feel in the mind and spirit. So if addiction is dis-ease and recovery is about moving us closer to a state of ease, then we have to conclude that food is going to be a critical piece of the puzzle as we look at how can we make choices that bring us to a state of ease, that strengthen our recovery, that strengthen our body, that calm our mind, that empower our spirit to do the work that we need to do here so that we can feel engaged and plugged in, healthy and whole. Now, the reason that's such a revelatory thing, that food plays such a central role in recovery, is because most people in recovery don't behave as if it does. So I'll give you an example. And I do not mean by any means to pick on 12-step programs, but it is a little bit of a cliche that people in recovery, for example, from alcoholism or from drug addiction, people in 12-step meetings have, what do they have at the back of the room? Well, there's coffee with sugar and cream and donuts and bread products and, cupcakes and muffins and all this crap. So if we understand as people on a path of recovery that food is going to either strengthen our recovery, move us closer to ease, or food is going to weaken our body and our mind and move us further away from ease, why would people in a 12-step meeting choose food products that are so obviously leading you towards dis-ease and not toward ease? It's an actual question. You guys have any sense of that? Why would you make that choice? Well, here's one thing to consider here to answer that question. In the case of alcoholics, alcohol breaks down in the body into sugar. And so if you're an alcoholic, you've been consuming a large amount of sugar. So when alcohol is removed from the picture, let's say you're, one day to 30 days sober, or 1 day to 60 days sober, whatever it is, why is it not more of a topic of conversation that people who are recovering from alcoholism are naturally going to have major blood sugar issues? That the balances and the levels of blood sugar, of sugar in the blood are going to be way, way off. Well, of course we're going to go for bread and pasta and heavy foods and sugars and sweets. Of course we're going to go for that because our body is addicted to it, is so used to it. And of course, for a while, until we understand, we're not going to be able to break out of that. So we're going to remain in sugar addiction for a little while if we continue to have these kinds of, make these kinds of choices around our diet. It will keep us in a state of dis-ease a little longer. So that's something to think about, and that's something to consider as we look at why this is such an important question. And I can remember speaking at a large 12-step meeting in Los Angeles, and I spoke and I gave my talk, and as part of my talk, I spoke about food and alcohol, similar to what I'm describing to you now. And at the end of that meeting, people came up to me and they said one of two things. One group of people said, "Where have you been? This is such important information. How have we missed this piece about the importance of food? Obviously, it's so important for the alcoholic to consider." So that was one school, one camp. The other school of thought after my talk was, what gives you the right to speak about food, which is an outside issue, in a closed meeting like this? Food is an outside issue. This one gentleman said this to me, and I said to him, look, you and I both want the same thing. We both want to be free of addiction, and we want to help other people do the same. Could we agree on that? And he agreed. Yes, but that's what we want. I said, if you consider food an outside issue, I'm telling you that you are going to miss one of the most important things in recovery that is going to make it easier for people to get sober and to stay sober. And it's going to make their life in recovery that much more enjoyable once they deal with what for all alcoholics amounts to a really painful sugar addiction, which is going to have a lot of different consequences down the road if that's not dealt with. And he just shook his head and was pretty upset with me, actually. And I said, you know, there's no reason to be upset. We want the same thing. We just might go about it differently. Let's agree to disagree. And that's how that ended. But it's very important that we take a holistic look at our life and our lifestyle. And so these are things just for you to consider as we're looking at food and our relationship with it. So here's a couple things that I want to discuss with you. The problem these days, one of the problems, when I speak to people and say, you know, how's it going in your relationship with food? They say, quite frankly, I don't know what to eat. I don't know what to eat. I'm so confused. There's so many opinions out there, so many diets. And, you know, if you don't know what to do, you really are at the mercy of any compelling argument. So if a book comes out and it lays out a really good case for why you're supposed to take on this particular diet or that particular diet, you hear about the book or you read the book or you listen to a podcast and somebody champions the ideas in the book and you're like, okay, this must be it for me. Oh God, I hope this is it for me. And then you try the diet and, you know, maybe it works for a little bit and you're like, wow, okay, got some momentum. I'm on this diet. I'm on this diet. But either something happens to throw you off the diet, or you notice after a very short period of time, maybe a couple weeks, I don't really feel well. I'm on this diet. It's supposed to be working. Here are the effects I'm hearing and the benefits I'm supposed to experience. but you don't feel well. And so it goes like that for a while. It goes from one thing to the next. The next argument, the next book, the next opinion comes out about food. And believe me, I understand this phenomenon because I live in Los Angeles, California. It's the mecca of two things: food. It's the mecca of food, and it's a mecca of opinions about food. So, you know, I'll be in conversations with people and they'll say things like, you know, Tommy, what do you think of the paleo diet? And I'll say like, well, I'm not on it. You know, and they're like, well, you know, what do you think of it? And I'm like, well, you know, for someone like me, it's a little bit meat heavy. It's a little bit heavy on the meat side of things. And they're like, yeah, but it's meat mixed with vegetables. I'm like, look, I'm not against it in theory if it works for somebody. But they're saying, well, what do you think of it as sort of a general approach? And I'm saying, and this is the important thing that you take away here, there is no general approach. I need you to hear this now. There is no general approach to diet. There's no diet for everybody. There's no diet for everybody, even in the same region, because every human being is unique. And so if you have been confused, if you have wondered, what is the right thing for me to eat? What is the right diet for me? I can tell you that there's only one answer to that question. And the right diet for you is the diet that's right for you. And the only way you can find out what that diet is to start to test and be aware of the way that you're feeling after you eat different kinds of foods. You actually have to bring that level of awareness and exploration and curiosity to your approach to food so that you can learn and be aware of the things that really work for you and the things that don't. So what's the diet that's right for you? It's the right diet for you. That's all. But in order for you to find that, you have to try different things and experiment. And most of all, you have to be really kind to yourself and not hard on yourself. And you know, give yourself trouble because you haven't yet figured out how to be more vital or more radiant, and your relationship with food seems to struggle. It's very difficult stuff. This is very, very difficult stuff. And I want to tell you how difficult it is. And then I want to tell you how you can figure out specifically if your diet is working for you or not, and what adjustments might need to be made. So the reason this is such tough stuff is because we've been in a habit, we've been in a relationship with food for a very long time. In fact, we've been in a relationship since we were born. And when we were finally able to walk around as toddlers, and we were able to walk around and we were able to exert our own influence, one of the first things we would do is to reach for food, different kinds of food. And if you were anything like me, that food you were reaching for was filled with sugar. And as I've said many times before, my childhood was really one sugar event to the next. It could be described accurately that way, that my entire childhood was really one sugar event to the next, intermingled with hyperactivity, and then periods of sickness. Sickness meaning like real sickness, like bronchitis or migraine headaches or flus or colds, because I got sick a lot as a kid because my diet was not supporting or promoting good health. So I grew up with a very, very sad diet, very sad, disconnected relationship with food. And what I didn't know was I was setting myself up later in life for a whopping case of addiction in other areas of my life. So it wasn't just, it was going to be food leading to drugs. That makes sense, right? Or food leading to alcohol. That makes some sense. But I'm telling you that in the way that I was thinking, in the way that I was approaching life, the rhythm, if you will, for me was, I'm uncomfortable. There's hyperactivity. I can't sit still. I feel uncomfortable in my own skin. I'm literally in a state of dis-ease. And so I want to try to fix that, as anybody would. So I reach out for something that brings me comfort. And as a child, that was sugar. Now, that sugar would get me high. And then I would crash sometime later. And I'd come back to my general state of discomfort and anxiety. So very uncomfortable way to live, reach out for something, get high, crash, and then return to your same state of being, which is not any better than it was before. You've managed somehow to distract yourself from it for a period of time. And that distraction, what does that lead to? Other forms of distraction, other forms of addiction. And that was the case. So yes, I was very now malnourished as a kid and very hyperactive. And I interacted with food in a way that I would notice decades later that I was still in the same habitual default when I felt emotionally uncomfortable, or there were challenges in my life, or there was creative frustration in my life. I really would notice, like, wow, I feel bored. I feel bored. What am I going to do with my boredom? Oh, I know. Let's go over to the fridge. Maybe I could cook something for myself, pass a little time. Now, I'd be eating maybe even healthy food, but the fact is I wasn't hungry. I wasn't eating out because I was hungry or malnourished. I was eating because I was bored. What does boredom really mean? There's something disturbing me inside that prevents me from just sitting still and being comfortable. I'm in a state of dis-ease. Now you might say, well, Tommy, what an improvement from doing heroin, what an improvement from doing cocaine, or smoking a big joint, or drinking a whole bunch of alcohol. Yes, wonderful, absolutely an improvement, and that's a great thing. And yet I still found myself in that state of dis-ease, meaning I am aware that I'm not fully comfortable, that because of the way my being is, my mind and my body and my spirit, I feel a sense of discomfort. And the way I'm going to deal with that discomfort, first I'm going to label it as boredom. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the fridge. And now I can say to myself, wow, you're practicing yoga, you're going out and you're getting all kinds of exercise, and that's wonderful. These are wonderful things, don't get me wrong. And I might say to myself, Tommy, you can afford a sweet, you can afford a dessert, you can afford to eat whatever you want because you're thin. Now, that is not for me. That is not for me a good way to be thinking, because it's an avoidance of something that I know to be true. That I'm not looking to eat my way through life and through my boredom and my discomfort. I'm looking to look at my discomfort head on, learn the lesson it has to give me, and then proceed to the next level of awareness and consciousness where I can truly be free.